So before we get into this new Saba album, I want you to imagine you're on your deathbed and the doctor comes in and tells you you have 30 minutes left to live. What are you going to be thinking about in that moment? Are you thinking about the money in your bank account, your achievements at work, the size of your house, or that new Shrek Wazowski NFT you just bought? If I had to guess, your mind would immediately go to a select few people, maybe your parents or your siblings, the people who truly matter to you. But you'll also probably start thinking about all the little moments in your life that meant the most to you. But when you're thinking of those memories, there's another place your mind might go. You might actually feel like you messed up somehow because you didn't fully appreciate those moments. And you start to realize that everything you pursued outside of those few good things wasn't really what you actually wanted. And you might start to look back on the many ways that our society or your upbringing tricked you into searching for happiness and validation in the wrong things. Personally, I think that whether you worship Gary Vee and wake up every morning to do your Sigma male grind set, or you're a really down-to-earth person and not materialistic at all, it's just human nature to feel this kind of nostalgic regret. The grass is always gonna look greener. But while we all struggle with this, we also have our unique reasons for why we fell into the trap of chasing material goods and meaningless success that at the end of the day didn't even make us any happier. For some people, it might be that we want to live up to the expectations of our parents, or we want to impress our friends. The list can really go on forever, and that's exactly what happens when we chase that validation externally. So on this album, Saba is giving us his unique story of why he felt this need to validate himself through buying houses and through his extremely impressive independent rap career. But as we'll get into, it wasn't just about flexing and spending money, but also about the pressure of providing for his friends and family who depended on him financially and sharing his successes with them. And he also brings us back to some moments in time when he actually had everything he needed, but he was too busy searching for more to appreciate it. And he tells us about how now that he's achieved everything he's always wanted, he can't escape this nostalgia he has for the magic of recording music for the first time, or his first crush, or friendships and relationships that he's lost over the years. So what is it that actually caused Saba to chase validation in money? He starts the album by describing how growing up in poverty influenced him to chase money and gave him this belief that getting money is going to solve all of his problems. And over the course of the album, he basically explains to us how he figured out that that's the furthest thing from the truth. On the very first song, he touches on this tension he has with spending money, saying, "I tried to spend a little less like a minimalist, but it gets harder the bigger you get." And the interesting thing is that he actually repeats these exact lines on this kind of hidden verse at the very end of the album. But at that point, there's a whole other verse that goes with those lines that brings the whole meaning of the album together. But before we talk about that, we have to understand why Saba is struggling to be a minimalist. So on the song, he's telling us how he's balling out, buying houses in California, and living this materialistic lifestyle that he was never able to afford before, even though he's trying to be a minimalist. But the thing is, Saba isn't struggling to be a minimalist just because he's buying stuff he doesn't need. This is way bigger than just him. He's talking about his family experiencing the same pressures before him and how this is a generational struggle. Saba feels this weight on him to lift himself and his family out of poverty. On Survivor's Guilt, he says he has no choice but to chase the bag because of the pressures of what his family has been through. He feels like he hasn't made it until he's able to share his success with his family. So making as much money as possible isn't just an option for him. He feels like it's a necessity. And on Fearmonger, he says that everyone he knows has other people financially depending on them, so they really have no option but to make as much money as possible. But it's not just his family. He also talks about how he's taking care of his close friends, and of course, when you're deprived of something and you finally get that thing, you're gonna go all out. So why is Saba talking about ordering pasta he can't pronounce? Well, he just told us he comes from a place that's a food desert, which is essentially a neighborhood where there are no options to get fresh and healthy food. So instead of going to a grocery store like Trader Joe's, people are stuck buying food at liquor stores where the options are very limited. And about 23 million people, or 7% of our country, live in these food deserts. But despite all of this, Saba wants us to have gratitude and recognize the blessings we have in the moment. Like he says on the first song, he's recognizing the shade as a gift from the tree now, rather than looking at it as something negative. And on the next song, which is an interlude, Saba takes us back to some of those perfect moments that he's longing for now that he has everything he thought he wanted. This song even has that same feeling of every nostalgia addict's favorite artist turned jewelry salesman, Frank Ocean,
with the Nike's vocal effects.
But why is Saba sharing these details about his past? A time when his music was still underground, he had a Motorola phone with no service and a car that barely worked, plus traveling anywhere was so dangerous that he never knew if he would actually make it to his destination. Why is he longing for that? I mean, this is nowhere near as pretty of a picture as Saba in some Los Angeles mansion eating pasta, but he still feels like everything was perfect back then and that he didn't appreciate those times enough. And on the song If I Had a Dollar, Saba addresses this fear that kept him from taking a moment to relax and enjoying the present. If you're constantly worried about failing or chasing wealth or even just staying alive, as he says on the previous track Soldier, it can be really hard to remember to enjoy the moment. And he's saying that his failures are actually what made him wealthy, and it's completely true. Not selling his soul to a record label and staying independent completely paid off, as Saba has probably made much more as an independent artist, and he kept his integrity. I mean, if you really think about it, how would a major label react to him releasing this kind of album with an explicitly anti-materialistic message, or even dropping Care For Me, which was an unbelievable album, but the main themes are grief and emptiness, and that's not really something that's going to be played on the radio or flying off the shelves. So this isn't your typical rap music, because as Saba says, he's not beholden to any corporate interests, and he was never trying to be. Just listen to his song Gray off Care For Me. Outside of his passion for music, what Saba is beholden to is the pressure of supporting his family and friends, which at the same time meant he had to travel and tour around the globe in order to make money off his music. But what he was missing out on during that time was being at home around his family members and friends, actually being there for them. And he also talks about how he dreamed all of this success he has would make him happy and feel validated, but in reality, he just misses those people and those moments that aren't available to him anymore. Then on 2012, Saba takes us back to a few more moments from his past when everything was innocent and pure despite the poverty and the violence around him, and he really felt like he had everything he needed at that time. And the last track, which shares the album's title, brings the whole concept together, with Saba reflecting on how he found escape in making music and how money actually causes loneliness and ruins families and friendships. And that it really doesn't make him any happier. He even says the only thing that changed was how much he pays for his shoes, and that he's living proof that money won't solve your problems and might actually create more. And then he ends the album repeating that same line from the first song, saying that he tries to spend less, and then he goes on to basically sum up the entire album, saying money is a myth, a sunken abyss, telling us it's not a goal to chase in itself, and it's wrong to expect it will solve your problems, because if your focus is on chasing money, you're gonna miss out on these moments that really matter, and all you'll be left with is disappointment when you realize the truth. But he's also recognizing that not chasing it is just not an option when you're fighting for survival or when you have people depending on you. And on top of all that, Saba's in this really unique position most people don't have the opportunity to be in, to make lots of money for himself and his family, so that's an added layer of pressure on him. And he decided to move to the West Coast to take advantage of that opportunity, but did he really have a choice when millions of dollars were being dangled in front of him and at the same time his loved ones were struggling to survive? So he had to make this impossibly difficult decision, which also means dealing with the guilt of leaving some people behind. So he's telling us about the sacrifices he had to make to produce his art, which he sees as an assembly line made up of his lineage and all the people who he once depended on who are now depending on him. So with this album, he's telling us what it really cost him to get to this point, to be able to turn nothing into everything, and why he traded it all back for just a few good things. So let me know in the comments what you thought about this album, and make sure to like and subscribe for more videos like this every month. You can also check out some of my other videos right here. And if you're looking for one more good thing to add to your collection, I partnered with Nasheed Chroma, who made this awesome Mac poster, to get you a discount on his amazing hip-hop inspired art. You can check that out at the link in my description.